There's a moment in everyone's life when motivation runs dry, when the initial excitement fades, when the fire that once pushed you forward turns into a quiet, dull echo. That's the exact moment most people quit. They interpret that silence as a sign to stop, but in truth, it's the moment that separates the dreamers from the creators. Because the secret no one wants to admit is this: consistency isn't natural. It's not easy. And it's definitely not automatic. It has to be forced. The most transformative results in your life will never come from what you do occasionally. They're born from what you repeat, even when it's boring, even when no one's watching, even when your entire body screams for comfort. The gym session you show up to when you're tired, the sales call you make when you're anxious, the journaling practice you stick to even when your mind feels blank. These things, small, repetitive, seemingly invisible, they build the architecture of success. Bob Proctor used to say, discipline is giving yourself a command and then following it. But how often do you follow through with the commands you give yourself? Think about it. How many promises have you made to yourself that you never kept? Not to others, to you. That's where it all begins. If you can't trust yourself to follow through, how can the universe trust you with more? There's a painful truth here. Lack of consistency is a form of self-betrayal. You set goals. You dream big. You visualize abundance, but then you abandon yourself at the first sign of resistance. You wait for motivation to come save you, like it's some magical force that shows up when the stars align. But Bob was clear. You don't wait for inspiration to act. You act, and inspiration comes. Let that sink in. Action generates energy, not the other way around. An action, repeated daily, forms the very frequency you vibrate on. If you're not consistent, you're not sending out a stable frequency. One day you're all in, vibrating at a high level. The next, you're sinking back into doubt, procrastination, comfort, and the law of attraction. It doesn't respond to temporary signals. It responds to what you persistently radiate. That means your results are not random. They're mirrors. They reflect what you repeatedly think, feel, and do. And that's why you must force yourself to be consistent. Force, in this sense, is not about aggression. It's not about willpower that burns out in 3 days. It's about identity. It's about mentally shifting from I hope I follow through to I am someone who follows through. From I'll try to this is who I am now. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped negotiating with myself? What would my life look like if I simply removed the option of quitting? The truth is, most people treat consistency like a feeling, but it's not. It's a standard. You don't brush your teeth only when you feel like it. You don't pay your bills only when you're inspired. You do it because it's a non-negotiable. So why is your growth optional? Bob Proctor constantly emphasized that your results are a reflection of your paradigm. And your paradigm, your mental programming, is built through repetition. That means the only way to reprogram your mind, to shift your paradigm, to change your life, is through consistent repetition. Not flashy effort, not sporadic bursts of energy, but calm/steady, persistent movement in the direction of your goal. If you're not getting what you want in life, it's not because you're not capable. It's because you haven't been consistent enough to change your paradigm. But here's the twist. No one tells you. Your current identity resists consistency. Why? Because being consistent threatens the version of you that's been running the show for years. That part of you is comfortable. It likes the familiar. It prefers the known, even if the known is mediocrity. So when you start being consistent, it panics. It whispers thoughts like you can skip today, or you deserve a break, or you're tired. Just this once. But those aren't innocent thoughts. They're traps. You must become aware of this voice and override it. That's what reprogramming is. Choosing the new voice over the old script. This is the internal battle that makes or breaks destinies. It's not about talent. It's not about who has better ideas. It's about who has the emotional stamina to be consistent when it's inconvenient. Bob said, you were born rich. But if your results don't reflect that, it's not because the riches aren't there. It's because you're not aligned with them yet. And alignment comes through habit, through frequency, through daily choices that compound until you become a vibrational match for the life you desire. And that's the thing. Most people never grasp. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. So the question is, are you someone who's just hoping for change? Or are you becoming the person who naturally attracts it? You don't need more strategies. You need stronger standards. You need to raise the bar on what you tolerate from yourself. That's what forces consistency. Not motivation, not hype, but a quiet, unshakable decision. I will do what I said I would do, period. Consistency is not about perfection. You will stumble. You will fail. But consistency means you get back up. Not next week. Not when it's convenient right now. You return to the path, no matter how many times you fell off. That's what rewires your nervous system. That's what builds a new identity. That's what commands the universe to respond. You're not here to live the same week 52 times and call it a year. You're not here to settle. You're here to expand, to grow, to become. And none of that happens without consistency. So force yourself, because the old self won't volunteer. You've been conditioned to believe that change is supposed to feel good, that growth will come with some magical feeling of certainty, that once you're ready, the path will feel natural. But Bob Proctor challenged that idea constantly. He taught that your current paradigm will resist anything that threatens its survival, and consistency is the biggest threat of all. Why? Because when you become consistent, your results begin to reflect your true potential, not your programmed limitations. And that's terrifying to the part of you that has built an entire identity around being stuck. Let's be honest. You don't fear failure, you fear responsibility. Because if you become truly consistent, if you follow through every single day, then you'll have no more excuses. You'll have to face the truth that your results were always in your hands. The only limits in our life are those we impose on ourselves. Bob didn't just say this to sound inspiring. He meant it as a warning. Every time you delay your efforts, every time you skip a day, every time you convince yourself that tomorrow is better, you're feeding the identity that keeps you exactly where you are. You can't attract abundance while nurturing habits of avoidance. You say you want freedom, you say you want purpose, but do your patterns match your desires? Because if they don't, the universe listens to your patterns, not your promises. Let's take this deeper. Consistency is not just about habits. It's about self-image. You will never act in a way that's consistently out of alignment with who you believe you are. So if your results are scattered, if your efforts are inconsistent, it's not a discipline issue. It's an identity issue. Bob Proctor said, if you want to change your life, you have to change your paradigm. To change your paradigm, you have to change your habitual behavior. To change your behavior, you have to change the way you think of yourself. In other words, consistency isn't something you do. It's someone you become. So the question is, who are you becoming right now through your actions? Not who you intend to become. Who you are showing up as today, this hour, this moment. Because repetition is how the mind learns. And every time you skip your routine, break your commitment, or abandon your plan, you're teaching your subconscious, I don't follow through, and it believes you. That belief becomes a filter, and that filter controls every action you take. You have to break that loop. You have to force a new message into your subconscious, not through words, but through behavior. Let's say you're building a business. You know what you need to do? Post the content, make the calls, show up. But your old self, the one addicted to safety and approval, will whisper, you're tired. It's not working. Just pause for today. And if you listen, you reinforce the old paradigm. But if you act anyway, even in small steps, you break the pattern. That's how you rewire your identity. Not by thinking differently, but by doing differently until it becomes automatic. And that's uncomfortable. That's why most people don't make it. They expect alignment to feel peaceful, but true alignment feels awkward at first because you're not used to it yet. You're stepping into a version of yourself that hasn't been fully installed. Faith and fear both demand you believe in something you can't see. Bob was right. When you're forcing consistency, you're operating on faith. You don't yet have the evidence of the new life, but you act as if you do. That's the key. Act as if the results already exist, and they will conform. But don't miss the hidden layer. You're not just creating new results. You're destroying the mental infrastructure of your old life. You're breaking neural pathways. You're dissolving energetic bonds with mediocrity. You're letting go of false identities that protected you from disappointment, and that hurts. This is why consistency must be forced at first, because you're fighting an invisible war inside yourself. You're challenging the very system that kept you small. But here's the gift. Once you survive that internal resistance, momentum begins to take over. Your nervous system calibrates. your subconscious starts to accept this new identity. And eventually, what once felt hard becomes your new baseline. That's the power of consistency. It becomes autopilot, but only after you've forced it through discomfort long enough. There's something else Bob Proctor always taught, something people tend to forget. Don't be a victim of change. Be a product of your own conscious creation. You're not meant to drift. You're not meant to react. You're not meant to wait for clarity or permission. You're meant to decide, and that decision must be followed by repeated action. So let's get real. You already know what you need to do. You already know the habits that will shift your finances. You already know the rituals that will elevate your mindset. You already know the routine that will build your dream. The real question is, what version of you is benefiting from the delay? Who are you protecting by staying inconsistent? Because that version, I assent your future. That version is your past, dressed up in fear. Let it go. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel worthy. You just need to start acting in alignment with the person you're becoming. When you force consistency, you're not being hard on yourself. You're being loyal to your future. You're showing your subconscious. We don't live there anymore. This is who we are now. That's how wealth is built. That's how impact is created. That's how energy shifts. And if you stay on this path long enough, you realize something beautiful. You never had a motivation problem. You had a pattern problem. And you've solved it not with willpower, but with repetition. It's easy to admire people who seem to have it all figured out. The ones who walk with confidence, build wealth, radiate calm power, speak with clarity. But what you don't see is the invisible war they fought and still fight every day. Because the truth is, consistency is not something you arrive at. It's something you recommit to, moment by moment. Bob Proctor often reminded us, you're either moving forward or you're going backward. There is no standing still. So every time you choose to skip, stall, or slide into comfort, you're not just pausing, you're slowly unraveling the energy you've been trying to build. But here's the twist. It's not your fault that inconsistency feels easier. You've been programmed that way. Since childhood, you've absorbed beliefs about what you deserve, what's possible for you, what effort looks like, what success demands. Most of those beliefs weren't designed to help you thrive. They were meant to keep you manageable, safe, predictable. And now, as you try to stretch, those beliefs show up disguised as logic. They whisper, don't overwork. Maybe this isn't for you. Let life flow naturally. But here's the wake-up call. Life doesn't flow until you create a current. You don't attract miracles by waiting. You attract them by matching their frequency through deliberate repetition. The law of attraction responds to vibration, but vibration isn't just about emotion. It's about patterned energy. The rhythm of your day, the tone of your thoughts, the integrity of your actions. And that rhythm must be consistent or the frequency breaks. Bob Proctor said it clearly, you must be in harmony with the good you desire, and harmony is not an accident. It's designed through discipline. Let's unpack this deeper. There's something almost sacred about honoring your commitments when no one is watching. It's in those quiet moments when no camera is rolling, when no praise is expected, that you shape your identity. That's where greatness is born. Not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the shadows, in silence. In the practice, consistency is spiritual. It's an act of devotion to yourself, to your future, to the version of you that already exists on a higher plane. But here's the paradox. Forcing yourself to be consistent isn't about control. It's about trust. Trusting that the small effort you make today has cosmic weight. Trusting that each repetition is reshaping your neural map. Trusting that even when you can't see it, you're transmitting a new vibration. Think about your dream life, the one you envision when no one's around. The freedom, the wealth, the calm, the joy, the impact. Now, ask yourself, does a person who lives that life skip their routines? Do they keep making excuses? Do they rely on mood to dictate their behavior? Of course not. They do what's required daily, repeatedly, without needing drama. And here's the powerful part. That person already lives inside you. You're not becoming them. You're removing what blocks them. Inconsistency is one of those blocks, and it must be removed with urgency because your results don't lie. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner patterns. Bob taught, you can't escape from a prison unless you know you're in one. So let's name the prison clearly. It's made of broken promises to yourself. Every time you delay action, every time you say, I'll start Monday, you add another brick to the wall, separating you from your potential. And yet, the door is always open. Consistency is the key. But you have to force it at first, because your nervous system has been sedated by inconsistency for years. Let's get real. There's nothing noble about waiting for alignment. There's nothing intuitive about flakiness. These are habits, learned behaviors, and they can be unlearned. You train your body at the gym, you train your muscles to adapt to resistance. Why would your mind be any different? Mental strength is built through friction, and consistency is that daily friction against your comfort. So here's a radical shift in perspective. Stop asking how to make it easier. Start asking how to become stronger. When you ask for ease, you're asking the universe to adapt to your weakness. But when you choose consistency, you're telling the universe, I'm ready to become the version of me that can handle more. And that's when life begins to expand. You start to notice tiny shifts. You speak differently. You walk with more certainty. You make faster decisions. You hold your boundaries. You trust yourself, not because you read a book or watched a video, but because you showed up repeatedly, even when it sucked. Consistency is how you build. So it's not something you earn from others. It's something you earn in private. And once you have it, your energy changes. You no longer tolerate crumbs in relationships, in money, in mindset. You stop playing small because your inner world is no longer fragile. Bob said, most people tiptoe through life hoping to make it safely to death. But that's not why you're here. You're here to build, to lead, to evolve. And none of that happens if you keep letting emotions drive your decisions. This is your turning point. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop needing the stars to align. Force the pattern. Become the person. Watch the world bend. The life you want is not out of reach. It's out of pattern. And the pattern can be built through consistency, one choice at a time. Consistency is not a destination. It's a lifelong commitment, a sacred pact you make with yourself to never settle for less than your potential. Bob Proctor said, to change is to think greater than your environment. And consistency is the vehicle that drives that thought into reality. Every day you force yourself to show up. You're telling the universe and your subconscious mind that you're ready to rise above your circumstances. You become a signal beacon for abundance, success, and purpose. The law of attraction doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to the energy you emit through your daily choices, your habits, your persistence. There will be days when the weight feels unbearable, when your mind screams for rest, your body begs for ease, and your spirit questions the struggle. Those days are the crucible of transformation. When you push through, even then, you break old cycles and rebuild new neural pathways. Bob often taught that success is a habit, not a goal. This means that the person you are becoming through consistent action is more important than any single achievement. It's the daily fidelity to your mission that compounds, creating exponential growth over time. Ask yourself, who are you becoming in the process of forcing consistency? Are you becoming someone who follows through, who honors promises, who holds integrity even when no one is watching? Or are you reinforcing old stories of procrastination and hesitation? The paradox of growth is that it's uncomfortable yet profoundly rewarding. It's the friction that burns away the false identities and reveals your authentic self, the one capable of manifesting dreams into reality. Bob's words remind us, your mind is a garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You can grow flowers or you can grow weeds. Consistency waters those seeds. It feeds the soil of your subconscious, allowing the garden of your life to flourish. But if you neglect it, if you pick and choose when to care, your garden will struggle. You can't expect to harvest abundance without daily nurturing. The universe rewards faithfulness, not fluctuations. So force yourself to be consistent, not out of punishment or rigidity, but out of love and respect for who you are becoming. Recognize that every repeated action is a step toward freedom, a declaration that your future is not bound by your past. You are the architect of your reality. Your habits are the bricks. Your persistence is the mortar. When you embrace this truth, you unlock the ultimate power, the power to shape your life intentionally. Bob Proctor believed deeply in this power. because he lived it. He knew that by mastering consistency, you don't just change your circumstances, you change your vibration, your identity, and ultimately your destiny. So don't wait for the perfect moment, the ideal feeling, or external validation. Begin now. Force the pattern. Become the person who doesn't quit. The world will respond because you have become a consistent signal of your own greatness. This is your moment to commit, to rise above excuses, to honor your dreams with unwavering action, because when you do, you don't just attract success, you become it.